Air pollution impacts our health, environment, and economy. Air pollutants come from multiple sources. It is therefore paramount that we take action together across sectors and national boundaries. To improve air quality, UNI's member states have been working successfully to reduce air pollution in the region through the Convention on Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution. 8 protocols identify specific measures to be taken by parties to cut their emissions. The Convention provides access to emission, measurement, and modeling data, and information on the effects of air pollution on ecosystem, health, crops, and materials. The Convention on Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution, often abbreviated as Air Convention or CLRTAP, is intended to protect the human environment against air pollution and to gradually reduce and prevent air pollution, including long-range transboundary air pollution. It is implemented by the European Monitoring and Evaluation Programme, directed by the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. The convention opened for signature on November 13, 1979, entered into force on March 16, 1983, which now has 51 parties, identifies the Executive Secretariat of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe as its secretariat.
Scientists in 1960 investigated the causes of the acid rain that was destroying forests, causing the fruit loss in lakes, and putting entire ecosystem at risk in the northern hemisphere. They found that air pollutants, a significant part of which were emitted thousands of kilometers away, were countering. In order to solve this problem, 32 countries in the pan-European region decided to cooperate to reduce the air pollution. In 1979, they signed the UN's Convention on Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution, creating the first international treaty to deal with the air pollution on a broad regional basis. The aim of the convention is that parties shall endeavor to limit and, as far as possible, further reduce the prevent air pollution, including long-range transboundary air pollution. Parties develop policies and strategies to combat the discharge of the air pollutants through exchange of information, consultation, research, and monitoring. The parties meet annually as session of the executive body to review ongoing work and plan future activities, including a plan for the coming year. The 3 main subsidiary bodies, the Working Group on Effects, the Steering Body to IMEP, and the Working Group on Strategies and Review, as well as the Convention Implementation Committee, report to Executive Body each year.
The convention has been extended by 8 protocols that identify specific measures to be taken by parties to cut the emission of air pollutants, as you can see on the screen. The result of this collective effort has been remarkable. Emissions of a series of harmful substances has been reduced by 40 to 80% since 1990 in Europe. In particular, the decrease in sulfur emissions has led to healthier and fairer soils. The drop in emission has reduced the deposition of acidifying compounds to a level below critical loads of acidity in large parts of Europe. Nitrogen emissions have also been reduced, although to a lesser extent than sulfur emissions. Hence, in areas in Europe where acidification of forest soils is still a problem, these incidences are merely due to the deposition of nitrogen compounds. The efforts to reduce nitrogen oxide emission led to a decrease in lead pollution. Lead pollution levels in the UNECE countries were reduced by almost 80% between 1990 and 2012. The highest reduction rates took place in the beginning of the period, reaching 15 to 18% per year in a number of countries, for example, Finland, Denmark, Germany, Spain, and Norway.
Principles of international environmental laws. First, sovereignty and responsibility. International environmental law has developed between 2 apparently contradicting principles. First, states have sovereign rights over their natural resources. Second, states should not cause damage to the environment. The Convention on Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution intended to protect the human environment against air pollution and gradually reduce and prevent air pollution, including long-range transboundary air pollution. Second, good neighborliness and international cooperation. The principles of good neighborliness is closely related to the duty to cooperate in investigating, identifying, and avoiding environmental harm. The convention, which now has 51 parties, identifies the Executive Secretaries of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe as its secretariat. The principles of international cooperation places an obligation on states to prohibit activity within the state territory that are contrary to the right of other states and which could harm other states or their inhabitants. Third, preventive action. The pollution prevention principle should be differentiated from the duty to avoid environmental harm. sharing its knowledge and information with other regions of the world in order to ensure that serious or irreversible damage is not inflicted upon ecosystem. Fourth, precautionary action. The Convention provides access to emission, measurement, and modeling data and information on the effect of air pollution on ecosystem, health, crops, and materials publicly. This environmental law rules of burden of proof was reversed so that the state would not have to wait for proof of harm before taking actions. Fifth, duty to compensate for harms. States are responsible to ensure that activities within their jurisdiction or control do not cause damage to the environment of other states or area beyond the limits of their national jurisdictions. Anyone who violates the convention and causes harm to the environment will be brought to justice. 6. Common but differentiated responsibility. The convention's priority activity include review and possible revision of its most recent protocols, implementation of the convention and its protocol across the entire UNIS region, with special focus on Eastern Europe, the Caucasus and Central Asia and Southeast Europe, and sharing its knowledge and information with other regions of the world. States should comply with international obligation for the conservation of the environment on the basis of equity and in accordance with their common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capacities. 7th, sustainable development. Sustainable development prompts that the primary focus of the environmental protection efforts is to improve the human condition. The information that people will receive, if it is accurate and fast, will increase efficiency and sustainability.
The Convention requires contracting parties to develop and implement appropriate policies and strategies, particularly systems of air quality management. The contracting parties agree to meet regularly to assess progress made and liaise on matters relating to the Convention. The parties agree to participate in a cooperative program for monitoring and evaluation of the long-range transmission of air pollutants in Europe. This program, whose activities are financed under a separate protocol, aims to provide parties to the Convention with scientific information regarding monitoring of the atmosphere, computer-based models, the assessment of emissions, and the development of projections. In order for this cooperation to succeed, the conventions allow for the program initially focused on monitoring SO2 and related substances, to be extended to other major pollutants, the monitoring of the composition of media susceptible to contamination by these pollutants, water, soil, and vegetation, as well as the effects on health and the environment. Moreover, the generation of meteorological and other scientific data relating to processes during transmission, the regular exchange of data obtained by monitoring. The Convention's intergovernmental policy, collaboration, and coordination has stimulated broad action on air pollution, including technical and policy ratification support to Eastern European countries. Convention representatives have also engaged with other international and regional agreements and organizations, such as the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants, the Minamata Convention on Mercury, the Arctic Monitoring and Assessment Program, regional seas conventions such as COCOM and OSPAR, the Climate and Clean Air Coalition around the intersectionality of air pollution and other environmental challenges such as the climate change and biodiversity loss.
The Enron scandal, which broke out in October 2001, eventually led to the bankruptcy of the Enron Corporation, an American energy company based in Houston, Texas. It was the largest bankruptcy reorganization in American history at that time. The primary reason for the failure of Enron was attributed to an audit failure. The problem faced by Enron was, despite having structures and mechanisms in place for good corporate governance, nobody fronted and flouted these rules and regulations. The board of directors turned a blind eye to open violation of the code, particularly when it allowed the CFU to serve in special purpose entitled SPEs. The auditors failed to prevent suspect and questionable accounting. The auditor did not even examine the SPE transactions. Enron shareholders filed a $40 billion lawsuit after the company's stock price fell. It achieved a high of $90.75 per share in mid-2000s, plummeting to less than $1 by the end of November 2001. On December 2, 2001, Enron failed the bankruptcy. under Chapter 11 of the United States Bankruptcy Code. Convention of Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution, often abbreviated as air pollution or CRRTAP, is intended to protect the human environment against air pollution and to gradually reduce and prevent air pollution, including long-range transboundary air pollution. Europe, and in particular, the European Union, is making progress in reducing some air pollution and its impact on human health and ecosystem. This study has shown that compliance, institutional, and normative effectiveness can be measured reasonably well. The Convention's basic method of creating sound institutions and its engagement with science has nevertheless provided a model for subsequent international. Furthermore, the Convention was created to prevent and tackle large issues in the world, and international environmental laws have strengthened core values. The environment is everyone's responsibility. The information and decision-making should be shared to preserve and conserve the environment for sustainable development. Even though the concept of a convention might be strong, it doesn't translate directly into action. Certain conditions of action can be easily accepted by anyone when no action has yet been taken. It is a lot more challenging to try to enforce those terms and get everyone to follow through, despite many failures and jarring revisions needed to improve the 3D. The fact that the 3D still has a net positive impact on us speaks of its significance.